This screencast will talk about how to use groups and groupings to have students working in different groups for different assignments on your Moodle page. So on this Moodle page, I have two different group assignments where I want different groups of students working in each case. And then I also have a forum where I want students to put in weekly journal entries. But I want those journal entries to be private between the student and myself. So I need to make three different kinds of groupings in order to have these assignments all work differently. The Groups area is in the Settings block, under Users, in Groups. So first I want to create the groups for the journal assignment, where I want to create a group for each individual student and then create a grouping that groups that collection of individual groups together. For this, I'm going to use the Auto Create Groups button. And I want to group only the students, and I want to specify how many people are in each group. And 1 is all I want to put in here. For the naming scheme, we can't have it add the student's name automatically, so we're just going to leave it like this. It will create groups labeled Group A, B, C, D, and we'll rename them later. And then we're going to have it create a new grouping, and we're going to call the grouping Journal so that we know which assignment this grouping is for. And submit. And you can see that there are now a number of groups, each with one individual in each. If I select a group here, it'll show me who's in that group over on the right-hand side. So each group has a different person. Now, if I wanted to, I could choose the Edit Group Settings button in order to edit the name of each of these groups. I might want to do that so that I know which student is in each group. This will help me with the journal assignment, use of the journal assignment later. But to save time, I'm not going to do that right now, and I'm just going to leave the names the way they are. Now we go to the Groupings tab to see what our groupings are like. And what it does is it creates a grouping for each group that's created, but it also created a grouping that's called Journal, containing each one of those previous groups. This is exactly the grouping that we want to associate with the Journal forum. So we'll be able to associate the Journal grouping with the Journal forum, and that will make it so that only these groups are used for the Journal forum assignment. But I have a couple of other groups that I want for those other group assignments too. So I'm going to go back to the Groups tab, and this time I'm going to create the groups by hand. I'm going to click the Create Group button, and I'm going to call this Group A. Oh, I can't call it Group A. It has to be Group. We're going to call it Group 1. So now I have Group 1, and I'm going to create a second group called Group 2, and I'm going to save that. And I want to manually create these groups because I want to be able to assign who is in each group. So I'm going to select Group 1, and then I'm going to click Add and Remove Users over here. And I'm going to have these first 4 people in this group. So I used the Shift key to select, I held down the Shift key to select 4 people at a time, and then I click the Add button. And I've now added these 4 people to this group. So I'll go back to my Groups page, and I'll now add a bunch of people to Group 2. Go to Add, Remove Users. And this time I'm going to add these people to this group. Oh, but I don't want to add Tucker, so I'm going to redo that selection and add that. And now we're going to go back to Groups. And I want this Group 1 and Group 2, I want these to be the groups for that Group Assignment 1 that was on the first page. So I need to make a grouping that contains just these 2 groups so I can associate just these 2 groups with a Group Assignment 1. I'll go out to the Groupings tab again, and this time I'm going to manually create the grouping because I created my groups manually. And I'm going to call it Group Assignment 1. That way there's no question which set of groups this is for. And I'm going to say Save. And now that's listed here. You can see there are no groups in here automatically. I'll click this little person icon that's over here in the edit column, and this will allow me to choose which groups I want to be part of the grouping called Group Assignment 1, and that's groups 1 and 2. So I'll add those over, and there we go. So I have a grouping called Group Assignment 1, which contains only groups 1 and 2. And I have a journal grouping down here, which contains all of the individual groups that are done by letter. I had one more group assignment. I'm going to make those really quickly. I'm going to say create group. And this time we're going to call it alpha group. And we're going to create another group called beta. For your assignments and your groups on your page, I'm sure you'll be able to come up with better names that are more descriptive for your groupings and groups. This time I'm going to hold down on the Mac the Command key. On the PC, I believe it's the Control key. You can hold down and you can multi-select students that are not next to each other in the list, and you can add them. I'm going to go back to groups here and put the other students in beta. One of the things that happens when you select a name is it tells you what other groups they're in, so you can tell whether or not you've already added this person to the grouping, the group that you're looking for. I went every other student, so that should be pretty easy to not have any duplications there. So I have alpha and beta, and I'll go to groupings, and I will create one more grouping called Group Assignment 2, which you can see here, and I will add just the alpha and beta groups to that. Now Moodle is automatically creating a grouping containing each individual group. You generally probably won't be using this unless there is a particular assignment that you want to assign only to a group and not to other students in the class. In that case, they could be useful. Otherwise, they don't really get in the way. If having all of these groupings on this page bothers you, you could always delete the ones that you don't need here. Now I'm going to go back out to my main page and make sure that each assignment and the journal are associated with the appropriate grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and turn editing on, and I will edit the settings. First we'll do group assignment 1, and we'll scroll down. I've already set it up to have the students submit in groups here. And this is where, under the assignment settings, where I just say which grouping I want to use for this assignment. For this one, I wanted to use Group Assignment 1 grouping. And then I save. I can do the same thing for Group 2, Group Assignment 2. Again, it's already set up to be a group assignment here, and I just need to define which grouping it should use for that groups. And then finally the journal. Remember, this is the journal assignment where I want each student to have their own journal thread that they can put in ongoing journal entries throughout the term, and the student and I can both interact just with each other, and it's not visible to other students in the course. I'm going to edit the settings here. And I'm going to go down to the area called Common Module Settings. Right now, the group mode is set to no groups. I'm going to set it to separate groups. You don't want to set it to visible groups because that will allow each of the threads to be visible to everyone in the class. Separate groups is what keeps them hidden. Separate groups like that. Now we still need to assign the grouping, and that isn't visible here right now until you go over to the right and show the advanced options. Now you get the grouping option shown here, and we can say that we want to use the journal grouping for this assignment. And we'll go ahead and save and display that. Now what you have in your forum is you have a new menu up here called Separate Groups, and it shows either an all participants option or each one of the single groups that are contained within the journal grouping. As I said before, you can rename all of these groups to include the student's name so you know who is who, which group is which, and then you can click on a particular group to see just those entries for that particular person. So this is a great way to have ongoing journal assignments, but have it not take up a huge amount of space on your page with individual assignments every week. And you can have an ongoing conversation with yourself and your student throughout the term.